Hello, Internet, and welcome to my review for Boruto, Naruto Next Generations, episode 97. When we last left our heroes, Namida learned how to focus her crying jutsu in a perfectly fine one-off episode. They did not play into this week at all. It might play off a little bit into next week. We'll have to wait and see. Scene 15 comes back for next week's adventure. But yeah, not really important for right now. Before we begin on the review itself, though, just a reminder, I have my 2019 anime review straw poll in the description down below, so go down, fill that out, let me know what you want to see come April. And yeah, let's jump right on in. So starting this episode in a cold open, we have Team 10 are like fighting some bad guys on a rooftop, and Shikadai accidentally sets a paper bomb off the side of a building and nearly kills a man. Also on a side note, everyone's like talking about shadow paralysis, and it really reminds me how much I miss shadow possession. Like, that was just a much more fun jutsu. Having the way Shikamaru like strategized with shadow possession is much more fun than shadow paralysis, but like even in late Shippuden, as I recall, kind of got phased out for shadow paralysis. Which is a shame, because possession is so much fun. Anyway, we find out after the opening that a month prior to this episode, the reason Shikadai has felt off his game lately is because this clan elder Enshu, who is completely new, commented negatively on Shikadai's shadow jutsu in a conversation with Shikamaru, and it's kind of had him feeling like pressured, I guess. This conversation also, much more interestingly, brings up the idea that the Sand Village somehow resents Shikamaru for marrying Tamari. Because he's, like, not some famous bigwig, and she's, like, the daughter and the sister of a Kazekage. But that's an idea that maybe should have been brought up a little before now, before just throwing it at us. But I have so many gripes with this episode that's, like, not even a gripe at this point. You know, we don't really focus on the Sand Village enough for that to really have been brought up before. There are many, many things in this episode that should have been brought up before there were plot lines. That's not one of them. Back in the present, Shikadai is at the burger joint with all the bros, who seem a little uncharacteristically mean-spirited about his recent screw-ups. Like, they're kind of... It seems a little bit more than just, like, friendly ribbing. And even though we're just, like, supposed to be friendly ribbing, especially Inojin should, like, realize how upset Shikadai has been over his shadow jutsus. So for Inojin to, like, just keep harassing him over it just seems kind of mean. Also, there's an interesting bit that will come up by the end of the episode, where Boruto brings up that Shikadai used to be pretty good at wind style, but Shikadai says he can no longer do that. That'll be very important later on, and I'll have my own set of complaints lobbied at that plot line, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So yeah, as I was kind of talking about when I was talking about the month ago flashback, I feel like a lot of this episode's conflict is relying on backstories that we haven't been privy to. The first time it comes up is really how everyone is talking about how Team 10 has made so many mistakes lately, and we really only get to see the one. And like it all ends well. So this idea that like they're all of a sudden a mistake-prone team that no one really has any faith in just is kind of out of left field, I think. But yeah, anyway. So Enshu shows up and wants to talk to Shikadai. Before I get into that, though, during that conversation, Enshu mentions Feudal Lord Ikkyu. Manga fans, y'all should know, this is kind of our first step into the territory covered by the second manga arc, the Mujina Bandits arc. So keep on the lookout for any more mentions of Ikkyu and the whole Madoka family. But just keep that in mind. It's a nice set of continuity in the manga. Ikkyu had never been mentioned besides like the feudal lord, but not even feudal lord Ikkyu. Would have been the feudal lord during the original Naruto. But here they are kind of like setting up his existence a little earlier, which is nice. But anyway, going into that Enshu scene itself. Enshu seems to be in the long vein of old people in Naruto just being the worst. Like, first, he pulls some strings to get Shikadai's team pulled from active duty. Then he blames Shikadai for this. It's all your fault because your shadow jutsu isn't mastered, and so you should go into politics, and then I'll let your team be a team again. And then he's like, oh, by the way, for some reason, Enshu has this idea that Shikamaru is, like, useless, which is not true. He is the advisor to the Hokage. He is second in command of the entire village, and somehow that's not fucking good enough for Enshu. And the episode doesn't really challenge this idea that that's not good, that shouldn't be good, that should be good enough, I mean. So it's just really weird. It's just really weird. But yeah, then he's like, oh yeah, by the way, the clan's future is on your head, 12-year-old, and your ninja powers aren't cutting it. Enshu's an ass. And unlike some other old asses in this franchise, Enshu does get at least denied by the end of the episode. He's not like the old advisors from, like, Danzo's allies that are somehow still around, despite the fact that they've had good advice exactly 0 times in the past, like, 30 years since Naruto started. But yeah, also, this is kind of the first time I really started wondering, where the fuck is the rest of the Nara clan? You know, there's all this emphasis on Shikamaru, like, carrying the weight of the Nara clan by himself, and somehow Shikadai is, like, because Shikamaru is a failure somehow, despite the fact that he clearly is not, Shikadai is the only one who can, like, prop up the clan, and not anyone else in the family. There is somehow no other Nara in the Leaf Village, despite the fact they clearly own enough land to have that whole forest where Hidan's buried. It just makes no sense. It makes 0 sense. This episode makes very little sense, and I'm not a fan of it. One thing I am a fan of, though, once Shikadai comes home and he tells Shikamaru and Tamari that he's going to accept Enshu's offer, Tamari has a really bad trait throughout the episode of being always super, like, critical and doubting of Shikadai's choices, whereas Shikamaru takes, in my opinion, a much better choice of being kind of, like, skeptical. But he has faith in Shikadai's decision-making process, but he does intelligently tell him to, like, talk it out with your friends first. Don't just, like, abandon them all. And that ends up being the reason that Shikadai stays as a ninja by episode's end. As he tells everyone, and he finally gets to Denki. And it's important to note here, during the burger joint scene, there had been a thematic link between Shikadai's situation and Denki's much longer running situation, which is why maybe there should have been a Denki episode instead of a Shikadai one. I don't know. But anyway, Denki reminds Shikadai that he should think about what he wants to do, not the clan, which is good advice, not because it's advocating you should be selfish, but because Shikadai is 12. He is 12 years old, and this fucking old man is like, the fate of our family is in your hands. Like, fucking hell. Fucking hell. Anyway, so the climax of the episode is based around a lot of technobabble that I don't think the show really understands about counterflow and windmills and turbines, and it's weird. But it does let Shikadai use the wind style that was mentioned earlier, and that's kind of one of the introduction of Shikadai to wind style is really one of the only good things this episode has. The other good thing, though, we actually get a shadow possession as the rock is about to fall on Denki's head, and Shikadai, like, shadow possessions him and, like, moves him out of the way. Good shit there, I will say. But anyway, after that gives Shikadai it solidifies Shikadai's decision to stay a ninja. And so he goes home, tells his parents he's gonna keep being a ninja, and asks Tamari to teach him wind style. And we find out the reason that he had not been using wind style is that he thought that using it would make his father lose face somehow. I didn't quite follow that people would, like, look down on the Nara clan if their son was using things that weren't just shadow jutsus. Okay, that makes no sense, but alright, I guess. Yeah, this episode was weird. I like Shikadai, so I'm happy to spend time developing him, and I'm definitely excited to see him manipulate both Shadow and Wind. One of the weird things about especially Team 10, given that they're kind of the ones with both parents being ninjas, besides Boruto, but he doesn't really do too much on the Hyuga side, and really all that much on the Naruto side either, besides knowing Rasengan eventually. But Inoshika-cho especially only tends to use jutsu from one of their parents. It was a big deal back in the Kokyo fight when Inojin used the mind transfer. It was nice that it was kind of like built up a little bit back during Super Beast Girl slump. But like, you know, Shikadai uses Shadow Jutsu, Inojin uses the Super Beast Scroll, and Chocho uses Expansion Jutsu, which also kind of defeats the strategy of the Inoshika-cho from the beginning that was to use Mind Transfer and Shadow Possession and Partial Expansion and Human Boulder. It was kind of like the Inoshika-cho strategy. And yet, Inojin is not big on Mind Transfer Jutsu, but that's not the point of this episode, so I'm getting off track. But like my problem with the episode is that the things these conflicts revolve around are just so out of nowhere that it's hard to accept. Like, at no point has the Nara clan ever been looked down on. You know, I can kind of see the Sand Village being kind of suspicious of them because, like, they're not really around the Leaf Village that much. But the Nara have been a respected Leaf Village clan for generations, who, in Shikamaru's branch alone, have a fallen war hero / master strategist in Shikaku, a war hero / advisor to the Hokage / brother-in-law to the Kazekage in Shikamaru, and a fairly respectable genin in Shikadai. Give him a break, he's like 12, he'll be great eventually, I'm sure. Also, the idea that Shikadai chose not to use an entire style he clearly has some form of proficiency in, because we saw him in the windmill scene. You know, he hadn't used wind style in, like, years, and he still, like, gets it to work real fast. So he clearly has some form of proficiency in it, but he doesn't use it because he doesn't want the Nara clan to look bad? Setting aside the fact that it would not make the Nara clan look bad, since when has huge sacrifice for the Nara clan been a part of his character? Like, these are all little things that could have been seeded into the show for ages, especially Shikadai, not being, like, especially Shikadai not wanting to use wind style for the sake of his clan. That's something that could have been written into his show from his character from episode 1. That could have been there from the beginning, and so this would have felt like some big accomplishment as he finally learns to live for himself and not just his clan, and yet that was nowhere in the first 96 episodes of this show. So, but no, they're just used for plot points. You know. Also, again, where are the rest of the Naras for Enshu to put his hope in? Why is his first choice a 12-year-old boy? Who puts their faith in 12-year-old boys? You should never put your faith in a 12-year-old boy, ever. They are notoriously unreliable. This episode is a mess. Like, really the only positive things I can say about it are, like, Shikamaru being a good parent and Shikadai starting to learn the wind style. And that's really it. So, next time, Birdemic. I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the episode more than I did, and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or fill out that straw poll down below, please. Or, you know, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!